When life throws crisis, stress, or unexpected change at us, the instinct is to usually think faster, try to control the outcome, and push harder, which is really not the solution. Today we are talking about spiritual health and how inner calm and stillness, reflection and grounding practices can become the powerful anchors when life feels chaotic. I'm joined by Sandy Myodo Gougis, a Zen teacher who guides people through forgiveness and meditation practices to help them reconnect with their life's legacy they want to live from. I'm Ildiko Seeley, your routine and performance strategist, and this is Routine is Revenue, where we connect your personal health routines directly to your business and career performance. Sandy, most entrepreneurs believe that the solution to stress is better planning, maybe better productivity, or even pushing harder. And you teach stillness as the starting point, I believe. So is inner calm actually a performance advantage that most people underestimate?
Absolutely. And part of what you said is accurate in terms of what people believe, and part of it is not.
Okay.
Pushing harder is not the solution. Yeah. The rest of it,
It's an
better
action.
planning, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, better planning is never going to hurt, right? But when we plan ahead, that helps us to have more calm and more peace because we know what we're doing. And I'll give you an example of this. My husband is a college professor, and one of the things he teaches is public speaking. And he's always telling his students, I'm so nervous, I'm so nervous. And he says, get to know your subject better. The better you know your subject, the less nervous you'll be. And that planning helps to calm our nervous system in whatever we're doing. So yeah, planning is really good, but pushing harder has the opposite effect because that'll then send our nervous system into fight or flight. And the problem with that is we're not designed to sustain that feeling for very long. Back in the days when the keto diet made sense, the caveman days, if those ever really existed, um, when we'd get that cortisol release in the bloodstream, then we'd either be running away from something or running towards something to kill it and eat it for dinner.
Yes.
But now we're not running, so we don't burn off those chemicals, and they are bad for us long term.
Yeah, you're not the first person who say that living in a sort of adrenaline fueled life is actually really quite harmful.
Absolutely, it is. It is. Our bodies weren't designed to have those chemicals running around for so long. They're designed to be short term, short bursts. And when we have a cortisol release, once we calm down and stop thinking about whatever the thing is that upset us, it still takes our bodies 20 minutes to filter all of that chemical back out.
Oh, wow. I delivered a presentation just the other day at International Women's Day, and I did include a little quiz to all the different parts of my method, my framework. And there were a number of things that were, I don't know, is it like the body reacts in about 20 minutes time? There's so many little things that research shows that it takes around 20, 23 minutes for the body to recuperate. So you are saying that, to get rid of those chemicals is about 20 minutes. Then how often we hear that, eat slowly because it takes the brain about 20 minutes to register that the stomach is full. Or the one thing that was in my quiz was it takes about 20 minutes or so to refocus after an interruption to your work. That in
Right.
itself, I suppose, is worth a little research into like what's going on in our bodies that everything takes 20 minutes to even out.
Right. It is really fascinating. It seems to be that's how long it takes for a reset. And it does seem like a long time. But on the other hand, isn't it nice to know that you have a reset option available?
Oh, that's true as well. Absolutely.
My husband and I don't do so much now. We've been married for 20 years, but we used to go to marriage counseling once a month, whether we needed it or not, just like a kind of a tune up. And one of the tools that our marriage counselor taught us was the timeout. And she's the one who first introduced me to this idea that it takes 20 minutes for your body to filter out the cortisol.
Okay.
So she said, all right, when you're having an argument, separate, go do something else, go do something fun. Watch funny cat videos on YouTube, read a book, paint, pet the dog, do something fun. Don't keep thinking about the stressor.
Literally reset your happy hormones.
Exactly, because if you keep thinking about the stressor, then the cortisol continues to be produced. the adrenaline continues to be produced. So you have to let it go, put it down, do something else for 20 minutes, and then you can reconvene and have an adult conversation.
This is where we
Yeah,
come back to that the inner calm
right.
is a performance advantage, isn't it? If we find that inner calm, then
It
our
is.
life performance, our business form performance all improves, doesn't it?
Absolutely. In every area of our life, it helps us to make better decisions. Because one of the things that happens when we go into fight or flight mode is, we have three different regions of the brain. And the forebrain here, the part that makes all the intellectual decisions, goes offline. We're running from the saber-toothed cat. We're not able to do calculus. So if we want to be able to make good decisions, we have to be somewhat calm. Doesn't mean you
Mm.
can't be excited. A lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, enjoy working kind of in that zone where there's just a little edge of excitement, but you don't want it to go so far that you start getting the
Or
stress
maybe not
hormones.
necessarily so far, but certainly not for elongated periods of time in one
Right.
go. So your career path is anything but linear. You told me that you worked in all sorts of positions. You've got a bank teller, a radio DJ, a TV producer. You have a law degree, a yoga studio owner, and now you actually operate as a Zen teacher, which is all grounded in forgiveness practices and finding that inner calm that we've been talking about. So,
Hmm.
what kind of experiences made you realize that stillness and reflection are not luxuries in life, but actually essential tools for navigating your spiritual health in your life?
Breast cancer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I had been meditating for, I think, 14 years when I got diagnosed. And when I got diagnosed, there was a lot of bumps in the road. First, oh, you have stage one, you'll be fine. Whoops, the MRI didn't show that it was already in your lymph nodes. We don't know if you're going to live now. So, there was a lot of emotional ups and downs on this journey. And at one point, my husband said to me, because I was pretty calm through it, and he says, "Do you feel like you've been preparing your whole life for this?" I guess I wasn't as upset as he thought I should be, or as he
Okay.
was, you know? Um, yeah, because I had a good meditation practice and I was able to tap into that stillness. And I was able to remind myself that it's going to be okay. And I told my husband that one time, I said, I'm going to be okay. And he says, does that mean you think you're going to survive this? And I'm like, well, no, not necessarily. I might die. But if I do, then that's okay. Then it's my time. I will do everything I possibly can to stay alive. I'm not going to just, roll over and say, oh, I'm not going to accept chemo. No, I had chemo. I had radiation. I had a bilateral mastectomy. I had Reiki treatments. I had acupuncture. I did hypnosis. You name it, I tried it. I had a nutritionist. I threw everything I could at the problem. And here I am. But I was also in acceptance that once I had done everything that was mine to do, now there's nothing I can do. So there's no point in worrying about it.
I suppose when you're worrying about it, that would probably just feed it as well anyway, because you are attracting that negative energy with the worries. while
Exactly.
while you were overloading yourself with positive energy and positive thinking and positive practices.
Right.
When was that, if I may ask?
That was in 2012 when I was
Right, so some
diagnosed.
considerable time ago
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about your forgiveness practices.
One of the things that I had to forgive, well, I didn't have to. Let me back up. Okay. You never have to forgive anybody for anything. But here's what a lot of people think when they hear about forgiveness. They're like, well, I don't want to forgive that person because then they win.
Mm.
So here's the newsflash: they already won. If they did the thing to you, they already won. So now the only person who's suffering by my being mad or hurt is me. They're off, living life, doing their thing. They're not thinking about me. They're not wondering, gee, I wonder if Sandy's still mad at me. They could not care
That's
less,
probably so
right?
true.
Yeah. I mean, the person who cut me off in traffic yesterday, they're not wondering, hey, is the driver of that little blue car still mad? They don't care.
They
So
probably
the only
didn't care
person,
even then that much.
exactly, I'm sure they didn't. They were, in their own little zone, or they would have noticed my little blue car. Um, Yeah, so the only people that we're holding back with our failure to forgive is ourselves. The forgiveness practice is for the self. It's not for the other person. Might it have the ability to repair some relationships? Yes, absolutely. But that's not why we do it. So there's all this stuff about you should forgive because it's the right thing to do. You should forgive because it keeps the peace in the family. You should forgive because you want to go to heaven when you die, or you want to have a good rebirth, or whatever your spiritual path is. So you need to forgive.
All these advice, they all come across as society set rules. And at the end of the day, we should forgive for our own inner peace. We actually talked
Exactly.
about this in great detail with another guest, Helen Valentino, in episode 39. So, yes, I'm really quite pleased that it's come back now, because it is so important to understand why we need to forgive ourselves and why we need to find that inner peace. Because
Absolutely.
it's for us, isn't it? For ourselves.
Yes, it is for ourselves. So that's the biological reason why, is it helps reduce the stress in our lives. We're not carrying around that resentment. We're not still chewing on that thing. But there is a spiritual element to it as well that's also psychological. And that is, we have an expression in the US, and I don't know if this translates well into the UK or not, but it is, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And it just means, right? If the mother in the household is mad, it spills out onto the father and all of the kids.
I'm Hungarian, so I'm trying to think if there's a Hungarian equivalent, but I can't actually think of one.
Yeah.
But apparently the
Yeah.
English one is rude.
Oh no.
Okay, he's saying if mum's not happy, run. That's
I
the.
love that. I love that.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the same
But
sentiment, isn't it?
hmm but the opposite is also true. So if we're calm, then that helps our family as well.
So now you teach the still point forgiveness practice, which is built around notice, be still, and let go. And that totally incorporates all of this what we talked about so far. So when people come to you carrying stress and resentment or some emotional overload, perhaps, what usually surprises them most about the power of simply pausing?
Most people who are very stressed and carrying a lot of resentment, for whatever reason, they've convinced themselves they can't meditate. And when I tell them, well, the first thing is we're going to learn to meditate, they're like, oh, I can't do that. This isn't going to work for me. But of course you can. Everyone of, average or close to average mental ability is able to meditate. There are people who are in a persistent vegetative state. I don't know if they can meditate. So I'm not going to say everybody can meditate, because then somebody will always say, well, these people can't. So yeah, a few people can't. But 99.9% of the world's population can meditate when they learn how. It's not complicated. Everyone has already done it. They just don't realize that that's what they were doing at the time. So I think that's the first big surprise that hits people is, oh, I can actually do this. I can actually experience some calm during my day.
Is it because of what we believe meditation to be, that you just imagine yourself sitting in lotus position with a mudra chanting kind of thing? But meditation can take so many different forms, really. So is there a
Yes,
particular form that you teach, or do you sort of enable people to find whatever suits them?
I teach several different forms, and then they can find what suits them from those, or they can go further. Breath work is where I begin, just following the breath, noticing when you're breathing in, noticing when you're breathing out. Really, that's just mindfulness of breathing. And I won't say that it's easy, but it's simple.
Yeah, I mean, I
The,
do
the,
agree. Just one of my other guests, Sam, we talked about stress management. And he was telling me that even athletes don't breathe properly. So, kind of, what chance have we normal folk have got? Which is quite shocking in a way. But yeah, to be honest, almost every person that comes and talks to me on the podcast comes up some way or another with about breathing, that how important it is, and indeed it is in stress management, in every way, your rest and recuperation, your mental health, your spiritual health. Knowing how you breathe is just such an important part, and so few of us practice anything of a kind. So would you like to
right.
share with us what you do?
Sure, I will teach one if you'd like.
Yeah, go.
Um, let's do what's called box breathing or square breathing. And we call it this because it has 4 points or 4 sides to it, like a box. So the first leg is we're going to breathe in to a count of 4. Then we're going to hold our breath for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4, and then suspend the breath for a count of 4.
Yeah, I do like that
So,
one. So yeah, let's
yeah,
do a couple of rounds. Hopefully people who are listening can join in and take a little moment to themselves to to get that bit of inner calm.
yeah, if you're in the car, don't do this, save it for later, right?
I'm going to shut my eyes and let you count.
All right, here we go. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. And suspend, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Suspend, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Suspend, 2, 3, 4. Now breathe normally. And there you go. If you've never meditated before, now you have.
It is simple as that. Just do a little bit of breath work, and
Yeah.
you can feel that, when you take a real deep breath, your brain starts to operate differently, and you kind of get lightheaded because I suppose that sort of expensive amount of oxygen that you take in and then blow out. So yeah, I love it. Do you know what the difference is? Because I do believe that each different breathing technique kind of helps with different things. So one of the main ones is indeed box breathing that we just practiced, and there's another one where you breathe into a count of, I don't know, 2, 3, or 4, or you can actually go up with it. Then breathe out for twice as long.
Yes.
Do you know what purposes they serve, or different purposes they serve?
I can explain that. Yes. So box breathing is just a good all-around relaxation, and it's very simple and easy for people. Well, again, there's a word easy. Easy to keep track of, easy to
Yes.
count, so you don't get confused. When you have a longer exhale than you do an inhale, it slows the heart rate.
Right. Okay.
Every time that we breathe in, our heart rate speeds up just a tiny bit. And every time we breathe out, our heart rate slows down just a tiny bit. So if you breathe in, and this is something that Korean Buddhists do, Korean Zen Buddhists, is breathe in to about a count of 3 and breathe out to roughly a count of 7, a little more than twice as
Right.
long. And that slows the heart rate. You do that for several breaths in a row, and now your heart rate is really coming down. And you mentioned how athletes use their breath. They do the opposite. If you've ever heard a runner going by you, they're just like, right,
Oh
as
yeah,
they're
they
going.
take very
They
short breaths, don't they?
Well, they do a longer inhale and a shorter exhale. Like, I used to be a runner. I ran half marathons. And so when I'm, going full tilt, it's 2 steps on an in breath and 1 step on an out breath. So it's in, out, out, out. So the out breaths are like, because I'm trying to get my heart rate up.
So that your blood gets pumped around your body quicker, so you can sustain that long run.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 So that's the short form of how breathing works. If you have a longer exhale, it's calming. And if you have a shorter exhale, it's invigorating. So what is your goal? And you decide on your breath work accordingly.
If you were listening to this thinking this is exactly where I get stuck, that is not accidental. You have the business strategies, but leaking energy and focus through weak personal health routines. This is the work I do privately with business owners who are ready to build their routines so their business can run without it costing them their health. And obviously in your practice, you invite people to notice that and to become still and then let go. So how does that process actually help someone regulate their stress and respond more calmly to the difficult situations they might be in?
One of the interesting things about just about any type of meditation is it helps you to notice when thoughts arise. That
Okay.
is the practice. We're not trying to suppress our thinking, we're trying to notice our thinking. And then we start to notice it when we're not meditating. When we're out living life and something happens, we notice when this powerful emotion comes up. You know, for example, I pick on my poor husband again. He used to have some pretty serious road rage. Anytime anybody would cut in front of him, he'd be so mad. And he made a New Year's resolution at the beginning of 2025 that he was going to complain less about traffic. And he's been very good about that. But what has happened is he still notices the drivers cutting in front of him,
Well, yeah.
but he's made a decision not to blow a gasket. And so he had this revelation, and he came to me a few months ago like he'd found the cure for cancer. And he's like, I've discovered something. And I said, What's that, honey? And he said, If you let another driver in, they can't cut you off.
Oh, bless
I,
him.
wow. Right?
Life changing. Oh, that's brilliant.
Exactly. It was life changing for him and for me as the passenger when I'm with him.
But how interesting that it took him like a year to not react. But of course, then he was obviously not quite as aggressive, I suppose, in his driving. And I don't mean aggressive badly. But then he
Right.
found that slight inner calm that if I hold back, I'm actually polite. People might even say thanks. Is that a custom in California to put your hand up to say thanks, to wave?
I'd say maybe 1 in 3 people do it.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
here in the
not as
southwest of
much.
England, it's very, very much a custom.
Yeah, it is in some places in the US, just not in Los Angeles.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, the big cities are a slightly different kettle of fish altogether.
Right.
But yeah, that was a very, very good example that you can train yourself to, first of all, not react to certain situations. And then over time, you just get used to being a lot calmer in that same situation and take on a completely different approach.
Exactly
That
right.
sounds
Yeah.
like quite a transformation, actually.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was a huge transformation for me because I used to be extremely reactive. And then I gradually was able to stop being so reactive.
But reactive
And
to
you can
him, or you were reactive to
Oh,
other things as
everything,
well.
everything. This is LA. Other drivers are a big one. When I'm teaching here locally, I use traffic as an example all the time because if you're an Angelino, you have experienced it. You know road rage. There's too many of us for our freeway system. It's nobody's fault. Everybody's just trying to get where they're going, but everybody takes it personally.
Mm,
No, that person's trying to get to work, but they cut in front of me. It's got nothing to do with me. They're just trying to get to work. So
yeah,
once we can realize that and just let it go, I'm trying to get to work too. I probably cut people off and don't even notice it. I mean, I'm trying to be a polite driver, but there's only
mm.
so much you can do. So yeah, reducing our reactivity is huge to being calmer and having a happier life.
Yeah, that's a real insight, isn't it? So for the entrepreneurs listening to us who feel overwhelmed by decisions, maybe of decisions of life, decisions of work, or the pressure of business, personal challenges, what is one simple grounding practice that they could introduce into their daily routine right now to create a more inner calm?
Sure, absolutely. This is the 5 4 3 2 1 method.
Okay.
And I first learned this from a friend of mine who's a therapist. So when you're feeling especially anxious and like you're about to go into that meeting and you feel yourself getting revved up, let's calm down. A deep breath is always helpful. And then look around and notice 5 things that you can see. And then listen and see if there's 4 things that you can hear. Sometimes there aren't 4 things, and that's okay, but count up to 4 things that you can hear. And then 3 things that you can touch. And it's okay to reach out. I'm going to pet my dog here. It's like, okay, dog, that's one. And find 3 things you can touch. And then see if there's anything you can smell. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. See if you can find 2 things that you can smell in your environment. And again, it's okay to pick them up. I have a scented candle burning here. And then finally, 1 thing you can taste. You might have something, you might not. People frequently have their coffee at work. I have my tea. you know so 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
Am I being pedantic if I say that the hardest part of that is to remember the order?
It's okay if you don't remember the order. It really is. Because what that does is it gets you at more out of your head
Mm,
and in touch with your body because
yeah,
you're using your senses, and we'll
absolutely.
start with vision just because we're mostly visual creatures.
Yeah.
But if you want to change the order, it's absolutely fine.
I think it would be an involuntary thing, but I suppose in some ways it does work because you can see loads of things.
Mhm.
Touch, it's a bit less in numbers because it's only whatever within arm's reach. Hearing again, it sort of reaches further. So I suppose these kind of associations can help with the order as well. But yeah, they are
Right.
all grounding. And sort of going back to what you said at the very beginning about public speaking, because I'm a keynote speaker. And indeed, when you know your subject, you are able to calm your nerves a lot better because even if you get those nerves, you've got the knowledge. So it's muscle memory to talk about
Mhm.
what you need to talk about. So the more you practice, the better you get. But also, I've been taught to sort of ground my whole speaker group. We've been taught to ground ourselves before delivering any speech. And interestingly, the last one I did, it was just a small group, and I got sort of called on. We were all sitting next to each other, sort of thing. I didn't get that chance of just kind of centering myself. And when I went on, I don't normally get very nervous, but somehow because I didn't get the chance of like having a moment to myself, suddenly I stood there in front of this group of people, and I got this really strong flutter in my tummy, and I nearly
Mm.
forgot what I was going to say, but then fortunately I practiced so much that it just started to flow, and then the rest was fine. And as soon as I got that first sentence out of my mouth with that muscle memory, I was able to deliver everything else. So yeah, having that inner calm is really quite important, isn't it? And having that sort of grounding practice, and that totally works for stressful situations.
Absolutely. Can I give one other tip for entrepreneurs that's
Oh,
occurred to
why
me while we're
not?
talking? Why not? A lot of us entrepreneurs, especially the ones who are in the wellness sphere and especially women, tend to have imposter syndrome. We're afraid that people are going to find out that we're really not as good as we're saying we are. And we are. We know what we know. And we are experts in what we're experts in. But for whatever reason, we're culturally conditioned that we feel like we don't belong here, that we're taking up too much space. So this comes from neuroscience, and this is the ability to rewire your brain. And I'm sure you're familiar with this
Oh,
already from,
absolutely. We've talked about rewiring in episode 49 with Melissa. Absolutely. Oh,
okay,
yeah.
then I won't get into the mechanics of it.
Oh, feel
Just
free to,
remember,
because not everybody listens to every
okay,
episode. So, yeah, please feel free to.
so neurons that fire together wire together. Our neurons are our brain cells, and part of the way that they communicate is through electricity. There's a tiny space between each cell called the synapse. And in order for the cell over here to communicate with the cell over there, it fires an electrical signal across that gap. Evolution has taught us to be lazy and to take the you've heard of the path of least resistance. That
Yeah.
actually applies to electricity. And so our brain says, okay, if I'm having to send an electrical impulse across that same gap for more than 20 seconds, I'm just going to close that gap up. Not completely, but the cells grow closer together.
Okay.
And there's a process for that. The dendrites grow on one cell, grow closer to the axon of the other cell. But the point is that they close the synapse much shorter. So the electricity has less distance to travel and the message goes faster. And
Okay.
that's what we mean by wire together. So every time we think to ourselves, I don't deserve to take up this space in the online world, in the entrepreneurial circle, we're reinforcing that belief. I mean, there's actual, and the funny thing is that psychologists have known this for generations. And even the Buddha talked about what you think about becomes the inclination of your mind. That was 2,600 years ago. But now we have the science to back it up. Now, neuroanatomy has been able to study the firing of the brain and say, hey, this is how that works. So now that we have this information, and we know that it takes, here's our number 20 again, but this time it's seconds, about 20 seconds for the brain to start to rewire, then we can just tell ourselves, I am an expert in forgiveness. And just hold on to that thought. You are an expert in the temple method. You are the expert in the temple method. You designed this. Nobody knows it like you do. And you hold on to that confidence for 15, 20 seconds, and your brain begins the rewiring process. And it becomes easier and easier for you to have that thought and know that it is true.
Gosh, that is so, so powerful. Incredibly powerful. I'm not even sure how to continue from there. It's literally just sending shivers down my spine.
Oh, well, we don't hear that enough. We don't hear that enough as women, I think. There is a business coach out of Australia named Leonie Dawson. And if your audience wants to go listen to her, fair warning, she's a self-proclaimed swear bear. But one of the things that she advises women entrepreneurs to do is approach everything with the confidence of a white heterosexual man.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. So you faced illness, we talked about it, loss, major life challenges yourself. Do you think most people resist stillness because they are genuinely too busy in their business or career or their life? Or is it because they are afraid of what they might notice if they stopped?
I think they tell themselves they're too busy because they're afraid of what they'll notice if they stop. Busyness has become an addiction.
Absolutely.
People turn to different things to zone out so that they don't have to deal with difficult emotions. That thing might be drugs, alcohol, gambling, shopping, binge watching your favorite streaming service. All of these different things are ways that we zone out so that we don't have to deal with life, so that we don't have to do the job of adulting. The young people have an expression, adulting is hard. Well, they're
And
right.
it
Adulting
is,
is
but
hard. It is
just get on
hard.
with
I mean,
it.
they're right. Yeah, yeah. We have to do it. But they have a point. But there's so many ways that we hide from that. And one of those ways is to be busy. And somehow being busy became associated with being productive, not necessarily the same thing. Being busy makes you more valuable. Well, why is that a thing? And who cares if I'm valuable to somebody else? It only matters if I'm valuable to me and maybe my dog, maybe the husband. But I don't really care what the rest of the world thinks, right? I don't need their
Validation. We
validation.
don't need other people's validation, really. Or we certainly don't need to do things because of other people's validation. It's good to do good in the world,
Yes,
but yeah, we don't need others' validations.
right, right. So we do a lot of hiding, and we do that so that we don't have to confront the difficult emotions. It can be challenging to forgive. I did a lot of work on forgiving my ex-husband after we divorced. And I did a specific meditation called loving kindness toward him, or metta in the ancient Indian language of Pali. And it took about a year before I started to soften at all. And one of our mutual friends and I were talking, and he says, "So, how are you feeling about him these days?" And I said, "Well, there's definitely been a shift." This is about a year post divorce. That if I were driving in my car and he was crossing the road in front of me, I wouldn't change lanes in order to hit him. But I might not change lanes in order to avoid him either. But that
Yeah,
was progress.
you reached a sort of middle ground by then.
Yeah, it was progress. And eventually I stopped spending my precious energy hating him. And that was huge. That freed up so much time, so much bandwidth when I wasn't being mad and hurt all the time, when I wasn't playing the victim and feeling sorry for myself. When I was able to release all of that, I had time and energy for all sorts of pursuits. That's when I went to law school.
Again, Sandy, that is so powerful again, that instead of hating something, someone, anything, just use the energy for your own good.
Exactly. And that comes back to forgiveness being for the self.
Absolutely, where we started from indeed, and then finding that inner calm. Sandy, it's been an incredibly insightful conversation. I'm so grateful for these major moments well, certainly I've had, hopefully our listeners as well. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio today.
Thank you, Ildiko. I appreciate your time very much. Thank you for inviting me.
If this episode has shown you where weak health routines are costing you revenue, your next step is simple. Ask yourself this question: is your business draining your energy faster than it grows? If the answer might be yes, I invite you to book a conversation via the link in the show notes. If this conversation made you think, please subscribe, leave a comment, and listen again. If you would like more information on the topic or my guest, all information is in the show notes. Remember, your business will only ever be as healthy as you. Together, let's build routines to bank results.